33. Noah is on his way. Rachel notified us she wouldn't be here. So we have a quorum currently of 3 of 5. Let's see. Additions or adjustments to the agenda? I don't have anything. Okay, we will, I need a motion to approve the minutes from September. Oh,
So
way off.
moved.
April 17th.
So moved.
You here? Eric? Want to second that, Eric?
I will second.
All right. Comments, questions, corrections? All in favor? That's everybody? Or three? And we will take a look at the warrants.
We froze the budget in April, sometime in April, so the only things now are really like pretty much essential. They're not very big. Obviously payroll.
Is that something you typically do towards the end of the year?
Yeah, sometimes earlier than others, like this year because of the federal funding concerns and needing to have that reserve. Probably did it a week or two earlier, but not significantly. I try not to, unfortunately.
I mean, at this point, if they were purchasing something, it should have already been in the works
Yeah.
or something like that. If somebody comes through with something that they're saying, "Ooh, I really
Oh,
want,"
absolutely.
yeah.
And like field trips, things that for the students to, enjoy the end of the school year, of course, are still open.
Page 2.
You got the agenda before we start. Sorry about that.
Right, Noah? Need the quorum? 2, 4, 5. We're looking at the warrants and we're just getting started, like page 2-ish.
It's a big bill from Drummond and Woodson.
What, I'm sorry?
A big bill from Drummond and Woodson, 12,000. Was that standard? Was that just, are we on a retainer?
No, that's a little higher than normal.
Things going up.
They're not cheap.
When we get like both people.
No, I put an agenda on the table for you.
Oh, okay.
I just picked the wrong seat.
I thought someone was already sitting there.
I should have put a pen there. This would have.
I left it on my lap.
It'd be what?
Worst part was, I did have one in my pocket.
Maybe you're a pencil man.
Yeah. You sign one thing with pencil and Karen gets upset here.
I'm on page 4. We have a big chunk going to MSMA,
Say that one more time.
MSMA, WC,
Workers' comp.
workers' comp. So for WCs.
Big one going to O'Connor too. That's a bummer.
That is a repair to the vehicle that was in the accident, Mr. Rice. What vehicle did we send to O'Connor to be repaired?
That would have been bus 4, the bus that I showed you the video of the accident down in Friendship.
And there's an offset, there's an offset corresponding, insurance check that went.
Pardon me.
I just couldn't remember which.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bottom of page 5, the vendor code 4083, there's a bunch of like, little charges.
So there are students who got awards for science fair, how they placed, and the reason they have all the same vendor number is when it's a small amount, like a student particularly, we put them in as a miscellaneous vendor and then just replace it, because we're not gonna ask them for a W-9
Right.
and that sort of thing, so.
Okay.
Okay, looking at the next set. Page 406.
Are we all lined up for fuel for next year? You know, fixed price or anything?
For heating fuel,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But, the bus garage, like gas, diesel and gas,
Yeah.
we can't lock into diesel, right? Or is it gas we can't lock in
Neither.
either? Okay.
I'm sure that's before it learned well. I'm not sure what that one was.
I believe it's curriculum material. believe. Let's see,
It's on page 3, right in the center.
yeah, curriculum. Sure.
$500 in cupcakes.
It's out of a student account, out of a fundraiser account. I believe it was for staff appreciation at the high school, but it came out of a fundraiser. Guess that laugh something, right?
Yeah.
I asked Megan, what does laugh like? Apparently they're amazing cupcakes.
They're pretty good. Lives in the balance. I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Same day, just a little bit further down.
What page is that?
3. It's 5,183. Lives in the balance. Or lives in the balance.
Lives.
I don't know which department it came out of, but it has to do with advocacy, awareness. I'll have to look into that, and find out exactly what it was, Julie.
Mental health or something.
That's what it appears, but I don't. Of all the ones I wrote notes on, I missed that one. Julia, you don't use lives in the balance, do you?
No, but I'm wondering if it's some kind of training or.
I'll take a look though, while we're looking at the other ones.
Page 5.
So how many of these people do we have that are transporting their own, well, they're guardians of children, but they're transporting them to special purpose private schools? How many of them do we have?
You mean their guardian transports them to special purpose private school?
Yeah,
versus us?
this Naomi McFay.
Yes.
I know who she is. She calls me up. She bugs me all the time. She's never happy with the bus service. She's never happy. Now we're paying her to transport. She got one kid going to a special purpose private school in Camden. The other one, she's homeschooled.
I can't really speak about a student particularly, but we probably have three guardians that transport their child in some way or another that we reimburse them because we can't treat.
It's cheaper for us to reimburse them than it is to
It depends.
run our vans.
It depends on the situation. In some cases, the child's not successful and they afford other children, or because they're the only child going in that direction. And so the parent transports. I mean, so I don't, maybe we have 3 parents, I'm thinking off the top of my head, or guardians that do that.
You got one that you lost.
Huh?
And I
Came
can't
up
say,
two
I
more
don't,
pages.
yeah, and I don't wanna say the
It was
name.
only that one that was the one that.
Oh, just special purpose private school, you're right.
Yeah,
The
it's
other
just
two I'm thinking
Just
of are
special purpose. private
children
school,
within
which is
district that are trans.
individual
Yeah,
purpose.
you're right. That is the only one, the special purpose private school.
But then we got a parking problem of parents picking up students at schools.
Yeah, I think that,
You
I'm
know,
gonna interject myself into this, but it's a little apples and oranges.
yeah,
Each case with the special purpose private school, that van was carrying 4 students. It wasn't working with 4 students, and that particular parent volunteered to transport, that guardian volunteered to transport the student, obviously with reimbursement. But it has made that far better for the transport of the other 3 students. Not saying there aren't issues, but far better.
Steve, are we obligated, to special transport individuals, if it's their choice? In other words, we have to pay them if they say, I'm going to bring my kid to such and such.
To qualify for special transportation, the IEP team has to make that determination. The parent can't request it or demand it, and they are part of the team, but the team has to determine that that's required for that student. And then once that team does it, we're then obligated to provide it in some way.
But no, there's been situations where they're like, we're gonna do it differently, and they're like, we're providing this, and we don't reimburse. If you know what I'm saying.
A number of years since we started using vans to transport students, but if I remember correctly, we had more than 20 examples of individual students being transported
Oh, yeah.
by parents or other
Oh, was
other
it that many
people who were
back
independent contractors. When we began switching to using vans so that 2, 3, or 4 students could run together. So it has come way down. But there are still examples sometimes for the reasons that we do it.
well, not really my place to say anything, because I never had a kid in the system. I try to help the best I can, you know. We had a conversation about one getting kicked out of school. Well, he rides a van because one of these days, my other helper will straighten him out. You get 2 of them that same age, and one thinks he's tougher than the other. One of them's gonna win. And it can happen on the farm. Can't happen in public school. I understand that. But, you know, we got a lot of problems that we can't control as a school.
Any other questions on the warrants? We can move on to the financial statements. The financials from the month of April.
On the main care reimbursement, we did get funds in, but that negative,
No, that's a favorable because it's revenue.
okay, all right.
So we're at about 345, and I looked at it with Karen and Casey the other day, and there's about another 52,000 pending. It was early May, so it'll be whatever's billed for May and June. Before, you know, it's always like, it's kind of like Stormies. There's always at least a month, if not a 2-month lag, because you got to have time to collect the data, submit the data, and then the state's got to do their thing.
So we're probably looking at 500,000.
It's possible, because they're adding, I think Miller School and the middle school have gotten trained as has the related services. I don't know if all of them are trained enough. yet to bill
Mhm.
or have children that are billable, but I know they're in the process of getting all of the schools that have billable students.
What did we end up putting in the budget for
I
next year?
put 400,000.
400.
I was feeling brave. So. Felt like at the rate we were pacing.
Yeah.
No wonder the state budget had to go up so much.
I think all the schools are probably gearing back up. I think it was a struggle all over the state.
Yeah.
Learning how to bill it again, so. All right, page 2. As anticipated, looks like. Page 3. Page 4. District-wide improvement of instruction. Still at 62% remaining. Is
So-
that our position?
There are stipends in there that are for mentors, teacher mentors, and those aren't paid out till the end of the year. It won't make up for all of that. Some of that was also stipends for, I want to say curriculum representatives. And last year, Christina had a meet every month, and Tom felt now that they've launched it, that every month probably wasn't necessary, so I think they've only met, like, say, 4 times, so that also, that may end up favorable at the end of the year. And libraries off, because we didn't have the library, and I can't remember when she was hired, but it was into the school year for a bit.
Might be skipping ahead a little bit. On page 5, it starts on page 4 with the school administration.
Mhm.
I know the overage at Union, I'm sure, is from subs.
Correct.
What about like Warren Community?
Warren and the high school, well, let me start with Warren. Warren is off in part because of substitutes and also because they had a benefit change to one of the employees. So in that is principals, assistant principals, and secretaries. The high school is over only because of the benefit changes, because they've had secretarial changes there this year. And they hired a new administrator. And Friendship is off only because there had to be an adjustment made to someone's wage after a budget.
I assume there's something simple, but I still would ask.
So there's gonna be a plan, and we're gonna have to move some from another.
I
article.
was waiting because didn't
Yeah.
want to take from I'd rather take from other salary lines if I can, so the schools could do what they needed to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the total cost of union will be. So I'll have to bring a motion to an action item to the board in order to do that.
I guess another question, it might be directed at you or towards Brian. Under the maintenance of buildings, is Prescott Memorial just behaving this year? Or I see there's 91% of the maintenance of buildings remaining for Prescott Memorial. Is that school just behaving and not breaking?
The 54,300 line?
Brian speaks in facility.
Sorry, I don't know the number.
I think, Brian, I just haven't robbed from Prescott to whatever project or we've had.
So, well, I find that hard to believe because we did a pretty good painting job down there. We did some work down there this summer.
Yeah.
So I messed up and
Okay.
put it into somebody else's budget.
Okay.
But no, we've done a fair amount of work down there.
When I drive by, it looks very nice, so I was like.
We can take a
There had to
look
have been
and-
something.
With all that said, they don't have a lot of issues with stuff getting through or big lines down there. Yeah, Mary runs the tight ship.
Good.
Well, maybe we need to expect it from all administrators.
Adult ed on page 7. The grant coming in, Maine Career and College Access Grant. Does that mean it's not been received? What does that
Yeah,
mean?
so I believe the way both of those work is that Ray has to spend it and then they send it. So like, if they don't spend it all, it goes back into a pool and they can each ask for more money. So I just don't think it's been invoiced yet.
Yeah.
Or,
Maybe didn't need to be used because you
Yeah.
didn't have the student that needed it. type
yeah.
of Thing.
And under the high school completion GED, the reason that is negative is Ray had some things that needed to be purchased and she's carrying a pretty significant fund balance. So it was agreed between us and RSU 12 that she could do that. Because the fund balance has to stay within adult education. It can't be used anywhere else, right?
That's good.
Yeah, her and Kayla both have done a really nice job. From what I understand, historically, adult education had had some in the red years, and they've both done a really nice job of keeping that.
And food service.
Food services going into the red, mainly because they're providing more meals than we had budgeted at, but we're also getting in more revenue. So revenue is almost 2 months behind because of the way the billing process works. So at this point, I still anticipate that she'll break even, if not make a little bit of money. But she also does have a pretty significant fund balance if it does go a little bit, but I don't think it will. The only school that's Friendship, because of the number of students, just covering the fixed costs is a little hard right now, but the other schools should make up the difference.
Okay, any other questions on the financials? Erin? Would anyone in the audience have anything to say? Joe Lamont.
Ready for
Action items, recommend to the board to approve capital improvement summer projects.
bear with me, just a moment.
I'm going to get logged into this meeting. As a side joke when my daughter went to Prescott. My husband came home one day and informed me that the assistant principal had told him something, and I'm like, there's no assistant principal. That's how Saturday. The secretary. Okay.
As well, we can.
Sorry, I'm closing.
Yeah, Karen, with PowerPoint.
All right, good afternoon. For as far as introductions, Carrie Worms from Energy Efficiency Investments, who you've all met before. With her is Keith McBride, to our left, and Jeremy Kilburn, who is a project manager with EEI, who's just started with them and is down here, and will probably hopefully having some involvement with us this summer. We've been working away, as you all know, for quite some time now on some projects, and EEI has kind of got that pretty well buttoned up. And so we're looking to present to you what we're looking to accomplish this summer, and hopefully that'll culminate in forwarding that to the board with a recommendation of approval.
Yeah, so I put together a brief kind of PowerPoint just to overview everything that we've done over the past few months to a year and kind of the next steps. So you want to go to the next slide. I believe a kind of a recap of where we were at, or where we're at. Starting in the fall, really, we've been looking at how to take that large immediate need project list and break it up into projects that make the most sense to do throughout the next few summers, and the best way to look at those financially as well. And then I'll go through kind of the current progress, some funding opportunities that we're looking at, and some next steps. The next slide. So this is starting about a year ago, a year and a half ago, when we're looking at that overall bond. We had looked at the buildings, and then since we were selected the districts, really dove into some of the immediate need opportunities that were focusing on failed equipment, energy opportunities, or where we could group in enough comprehensive approaches to make it financially feasible to break these projects down. So what I have highlighted in yellow are all of the projects from this immediate list that are being tackled under this summer of 2025 project that will also kind of go into summer of 2026, just based on equipment and scheduling.
And those I can pass them.
Yeah, they're right over there. I think they're at Steve's now.
Okay.
And then, oops, you want to go back up one
Sorry,
slide.
I'm being a little spastic over here.
And then the blue ones are items that we broke out of the performance contract to do within budget funds starting this spring. So those were smaller projects with a smaller budget that we were tackling during the April vacation, and then those will be finished up in early summer. So it includes starting the controls upgrade at Union from pneumatics to PVC, doing some noise control at Prescott. That's been an issue for a few years at that school with one of the air handlers that goes into 2 classrooms. We'll be installing a drop ceiling over that to buffer some of that noise. And that will solve that. And then we have some insulation work at Miller that we'll also be looking at over starting this summer portion. And then anything that's not highlighted is what we're going to be evaluating for what we call phase 3. And these really is going to be bringing the entire district now onto propane. So the few remaining buildings that we have on oil with older boilers that are end of life, we'll look at converting those into new condensing propane boilers. And then also the ventilation improvements at Friendship, Miller, and Warren, and then Union. Finishing those end of life air handlers and bringing them up to energy recovery. When we go from older air handlers into energy recovery, we typically add dehumidification at the time of install. It's a lot cheaper to do it then than, down the road if you want to have it. So those projects will also include air conditioning in a sense. It's dehumidification, but in the climate that we're in the seasons that we're in with the schools, it really is going to cool spaces down and act as an air conditioning. So the rest of those we'll start evaluating pretty much end of summer this fall to see what we would want to fit into that phase 3. We can go to the next slide. It's kind of the phasing of this started in summer of '24. We tackled the two immediate needs, the Union roof and then the domestic hot water failure at Union School, which then led into, like I said, the spring of '25 projects into summer of '25, which will be summer of '25 and '26, and then the same thing with '26 and '27 for the phase 3. We are tackling the septic. Up the next slide, we'll have the septic system layout where we're gonna put in the new septic system at the high school. We fortunately were able to find a location that we're not going to be touching that tree farm. That was a big issue the last time this was looked at and kind of held it up. We'll be doing a location next to the softball fields on an empty field. It will be covered back up with grass so it can still be used. We won't be putting a mound over it, so it's gonna be leveled, so it will still be able to be used for miscellaneous practice fields the way that it is now. Next slide.
That's very exciting.
The disposal field of that will be cement chambers,
Yeah.
still, what we're looking at, so that'll allow us to still be up over it with vehicles or anything like that, so.
Yep, the larger, one of the other larger portions of this summer project, I think, is the septic, but then also two of the items that were on the immediate need item list was looking at the high school boiler plant. That's been again looked at for a few years because it's an end of life boiler. You need more space in that high school for that boiler room. So after doing a few different evaluations, the central biomass plant became kind of the best option to look at. It covered a lot of the needs that this district needed. So we'll be looking at doing a central biomass plant over on the side access road to the high school, and I have a design for that in the next slide, but it will be piped underground through the high school and then over into the middle school. So we'll be taking the middle school and the high school off of oil and going to propane. Going to backup propane with biomass wood chip in that central plant. This central plant building will also have some additional storage space for facilities. So that will free up some room in the high school as well. And then also be an area that facilities can store items that they need into that building. The two pictures that I had on the previous slide were similar designs that we'll be looking at for that central building. There's not going to be an outside silo. It'll all be enclosed into this building with a rake system, not a walking floor. This will be a rake system into the biomass boiler, and everything is going to be contained in that building. So aesthetic wise, it won't have that large outdoor silo. And then with this project, we were also able, part of what made it so appealing is we were able to get a $300,000 rebate from Efficiency Maine for a large biomass system, as well as around $15,000 a year through the Maine thermal rec called the T-REC program. And that's going to give the district a check every year based on the usage of that boiler. So we'll have a monitor in there that will feed back into an online program that will be verified by a third party. And all that usage will then translate into dollars. And based on the rates, it's around $14,000 to $15,000 a year the district will get back for using that biomass plant. We need to go to the next slide.
Did I skip this one?
No, this was just shows where the building is gonna go and then where that piping is gonna go across the campus. This shows the project breakout. Based on the funding that we had, we wanted to make sure that we had availability for this project as well as the phase 2, which will be the ventilation and rest of the district controls. So this breaks out where the project costs are coming from. Included in this project, we have finishing the union controls of this building to upgrade them. That project started in April. We'll be finishing this building this summer. We'll also be doing the Miller School, converting that from pneumatics to DDC and replacing those controls and valves. So we'll start that building as well. And then again, on that list has been the window replacement for this building at Union. So we'll be including the full building or full window replacement. It's about 90 plus windows and 3 awnings that will get replaced at Union School. And that'll be done through a tax exempt lease purchase, which will bring the total yearly payment, which includes energy savings at $65,000 and the $15,000 up to 510,000, which leaves us enough wiggle room with the budget to do and focus on ventilation for the next phase and finish those control upgrades from that immediate priority list. And this accomplishes a good deal of that between the spring projects last summer and now this project to chip away at that larger immediate need list. If you want to go to the next slide, what coming up this summer is the school revolving renovation applications. And so with the timing of how we're developing this, we're going to look at submitting an application for the union ventilation replacement. Friendship gymnasium air handler has failed, and adding ventilation to 6 classrooms at Miller School. Last year's revolving renovation cycle was more for schools involved in the preschool early learning program, so it was a very limited funding. But I've done the revolving applications for years, and of the 4 million that was available in last year's cycle, our project received 2 million. So we received half of the funding from last year's cycle. So kind of have a good idea of what they're looking for in these applications to stage them, where I think we have a very strong chance at some of these for the revolving renovation fund, which means whatever it used to be free and reduced lunch rate. I'm not sure what they call it now, but whatever that percentage is, say it's 60% for hypothetical reasons, then if you receive one of these grants and the project say is 1.5 million, 60% of that would be forgiven from the state, and the remaining will be paid back at 0% for 10 years. So it's very appealing to go after these. It limits you to $2 million per project, essentially per school, which is fair, which is fine for these projects. So I think at Miller and Friendship, we certainly will be under that if there's other opportunities we wanted to apply for down the road. Union ventilation is probably going to be closer to $1 million, but still that leaves us some wiggle room at Union as well. So we'll be looking to submit those applications for October when they're due, and then we would find out in February if we were awarded any. So that leaves us plenty of planning room for if we have them included in a larger tax exempt lease purchase, or if we can separate them out and go through the main bond bank at 0%. Then we separate those out, which again then has some wiggle room in the other phase. So those will be what we're looking at in the fall. Currently, there's a school electrification opportunity. This one, the applications are due by June. We're still evaluating if it makes sense, but the problem with the VRF system in schools is you're not addressing any ventilation. And the districts have oil, so that's one of the avenues that they're gonna extend that most likely. We'll continue to evaluate it, but the VRF system is very costly upfront to install and really has a unique place in schools because typically schools need to replace their boilers already and ventilation. So it's not cost effective to also do a VRF, but it's something that we're kind of keeping in mind if there is an application for it.
This is all fallback plan if, because we know that Miller and the high school will be number 1 and 2 on the capital construction list.
Yeah.
When that gets released next month for the state for replacement.
1 and 2 from the bottom.
Yeah. Let's hope it's not there.
And I think I might have to have one more slide on there, I'm not
Just
sure.
a thing.
Nope, okay, so yeah, that kind of was like a quick recap of where we've been at. I know we've talked about this for a while, but now that we're kind of in that final stage to get ready for summer, wanted to go through the process and then where we landed on the scope for this project, since it's been a little bit of a moving target on where we were at budget wise, but we're able to get a good amount of that immediate need list checked off in this second phase.
Is there any retrofitting that has to be done at the high school and middle school with the changing over to the heating system?
It's all included, so we'll be kind of demoing that boiler room, so the space in that high school is gonna be back to the school. And everything is gonna be now through that central plant, so it'll be all hooked up into the central plant for the.
So the plumbing system, the heating systems don't have to be retrofitted or you have to be in the buildings.
They're gonna be
They're not.
removed.
We're hooking up to the existing distribution system.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But there's no cooling involved.
Not in this project, no. That would be, cooling would be looked at with the ventilation. One of the items on the ventilation is the high school ventilation to be addressed. That's when we would look at adding dehumidification with the ERVs. The high school, a VRF system, we could look at in certain areas with that program. However, you're still gonna have to replace the ventilation here, so it's kind of double dipping on costs.
So if you remember back a year or so ago when we were going through the bond and I was laying out kind of what our top 10 was, what this is going to allow us to do is address probably the top 5 or 6. We're going to take care of the roof here at Union Elementary School that we've already taken care of, the domestic hot water here at Union Elementary School that we've already taken care of. It's going to take care of the septic system at Potomac Valley High School that we had talked about. It's going to take care of the domestic hot water and boilers at Potomac Valley High School, which has the great byproduct of giving us now space where we can do some upgrades to the water treatment system and also the water storage tank that we can have for on-demand use. It's going to allow us to address the controls and valves at Miller School. And so we're chipping away. These projects are going to allow us to chip down the ventilation at Friendship. So we're knocking off some of those very high, the top tier issues that we found in the district.
We'll have a new top 10.
Yeah.
Well, it's always, I mean,
Yeah.
tomorrow we could have a new one. If we could have a new one. at the
They
top of the
have,
list.
they have.
And a lot of these have been looked at for maybe even 5 years. I think we've even looked at some of these were 5 years ago that we started evaluating these and they were immediate needs then. So to chip away at these is, it's a long time in the works.
I don't think the public understands that.
So I think, so this is kind of a first overview, but what we were looking at putting together was a little bit more of an in-depth, I don't call it marketing, but a community education tool for you guys that can allow the community to see, hey, we had all these issues in the $80 million bond. So we're now attacking them internally in the budget with the funding that we received from town, increased budget, and doing it a comprehensive approach to start chipping away at it. And then the benefits of it. So we'll put one together for June that will allow it, you want to put it on the website or send it out, that will have a little bit more detail of how you're approaching those projects and doing it in a cost-effective manner. And then also the benefits of the biomass and the funding that we're receiving for that. That way the community can have a better understanding of what steps the district has taken since that bond.
That's good.
Is there something we can have this for before the budget vote?
Yeah.
So it could be used to encourage people to go vote on the budget?
Yeah, we can add to this one and kind of adjust it to make it that more in detailed one, probably in the next 2 weeks.
How do we get that out to people? Can that be done in some way? General public?
I'm assuming it would be a direct mailer.
We could do a mailing.
I mean, I'm assuming that would be.
We've done mailed flyers before, flyers for the website, you could put it onto the website, email blast if you do a weekly email. We've done it a few different ways for schools, and then also what we're looking into this summer we'll start on the biomass building. And recently we just did a geothermal project for the school where it was kind of a breaking ground ceremony for them. So we could do something similar for that biomass facility, where it's in a sense breaking ground, and have a news article that kind of addresses what the school is doing now at that campus, and what that new building will be, since it will be a staple there, and they'll be able to see it, and do a positive press release, by like RS-440s going to a central biomass plant.
Oh, didn't you have a-
Yeah, well, I know just how to sell it to the public, but I don't know if this equipment that we're putting in, this biomass. Because if you could relieve the 5 towns in this district of their waste, cardboard, paper, you know, that they're sorting at these dumps and get it into that biomass boiler, the public would bite on so quick that they'd love us forever. But I don't know, you know, I don't know if this is just a wood chip.
It's a
I-
wood chip.
I've been told that, you know, this won't have scrubbers enough, we can't do this, we can't do, but that's all private individuals and all hearsay, as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
You people know what you're doing, and we need to know.
yeah, so this is a wood chip plant. I don't think we've ever been asked how paper and cardboard gets
I
burned.
don't,
I don't think it'll improve
I
the
think it's an
efficiency.
environmental challenge,
Yeah.
unfortunately. You need a much larger scale plant to be able to make that, recycling / waste, product cost effective.
What you can do is use the ashes from it as fertilizer.
That's right.
So there's kind of that full cycle is you can take the ash that comes out of it and utilize that as fertilizer.
Yeah, there's basically potash. All the farmers are looking for nitrogen. That's all they want, nitrogen. They don't care about the rest of the stuff. As long as we can get nitrogen.
Yeah. And part of what I plan on putting in more detail is the benefits of biomass, the CO2 reduction, the highlight, you know, the $300,000 grant from Agency Maine, the thermal RECs to help offset it. And then the overall efficiency of it for the district to utilize that versus utilize the biomass versus propane or oil. Propane will be the backup, but versus oil.
Well, hopefully the procurement of wood chips. I mean, it sounds like an easy job, but nothing's ever
Nothing
easy,
that you have.
you know, because we're gonna have to have a steady supply
Yeah,
in cold weather.
yeah.
And then the supply, then, you know, come this kind of weather, we don't need all that heat. So, you know, that guy that's selling them, he's,
It's very similar to what we do with, I mean, it's not similar, but with like the
Yeah.
pellet boilers,
This pellet
they have the
boiler,
same, you have the same cycle of use and then
Yeah.
not use.
What about Robbins Lumber? They do a lot of chipping and stuff.
So, sourcing biomass, I do not anticipate, there are a number of.
Well, he's just right up the road.
Yeah, we'll get
Yeah.
multiple quotes, to see.
There's a large supply of wood chips in the state.
Okay, well,
well, most of the chippers that I know, they're not, you know, they got the equipment to do it, but they're not using it, because there's no market.
Yeah,
Yes, but there's a bunch, I mean, there's one up Linkletter, which is up by my camp in Abbott, I mean, he's a huge, wood chip guy, so biomass is not gonna pose a problem.
Yeah.
Just looking at the quick Google search, I mean, there's a lot of companies that do.
So from a finance committee perspective, there was a down payment and all of that has all been taken care of in the budget that's been being proposed. So there's no issues with that. Do we want to go ahead and make a recommendation to the board to approve capital improvement summer projects?
So moved.
Second.
Anything else? All in favor? Cool.
Thank you very much.
right, yeah, as, a board, once we get closer to it, if there is desire for kind of that press release on it, just let Brian here know, we can get working on setting that up, to get that out into the local news.
I think that's important.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, the next thing is to recommend to the board for RSU 40 to use private insurance option for paid family medical leave insurance.
So Holly and Scott and I watched a presentation done by MSMA to use them instead of the state. The advantages are we can defer for 13 months. and we will save approximately $122,000 for the district and equal amount for the employees by going to a private insurance. We do have to commit to staying with the private insurance for 3 years. Just had it up here a minute ago. There are some of the pros to a private insurance is what they do. You know, that's what private insurance have done for long and short-term leave for a long time, so they're more accustomed to it. They do require a little more data from us, but they also vet things out more so than what the state has been accustomed to doing this time. So I don't really see a downside to doing it.
So do we currently have it? Family medical leave insurance? Is it currently a benefit?
We had to just start paying into it, but employees can't benefit from it until 2026. But we had to start paying into it as of January for a subset of our employees. So for the people in collective bargaining agreements, it's not applicable until their collective bargaining agreement expires, if they had one in place as of some date in October. So right now, it's only the administrative collective bargaining that has to pay in, and the non-representative employees. And then next year will be the teachers, and then the year after will be the support staff.
So if we go private, you don't have to, you can stop that payment, right? It's gonna go to the.
So the insurance company is to the state.
Yes, that's the state. And then,
And at what point are the employees covered?
same time frame.
The exact same time frame, which is not until we're actually paying it, really, too.
Basically, in this scenario, right?
Right. So it doesn't actually defer the benefit because the benefit hasn't even started.
Correct.
Makes sense to me.
Right. And right now and I don't know exactly how they did the ranking. They had a ranking of 0.88 or 0.98 versus 1%. So 0.88% and 0.98%. We came into 0.98. I assume that has to do with the number of employees, their age, like Holly had to fill in a whole bunch of criteria to get that. So maybe 3 years from now, we'll be at the 0.88 and then we'll go down. Well, we don't know, but right now, at least we are saving some.
Do we know? It would be difficult if we wanted to go back into the state option.
No, we just have to let them, we can't within that 3 years, but then we just have to know. Yeah. The
So that's something
benefit
that can be
they have it here
monitored.
starts May 1 of 2026. Is when the benefits.
But that can be monitored at each renewal, whether or not that's still the best option too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you need a motion for that
Yes,
recommendation?
please.
Then I'll move that.
I'll second.
Any other questions? All in favor? Thank you. Other items is federal funds update.
I don't really have one.
You did, there ain't
I put it on there hoping that maybe we'd know something more.
Yeah.
We don't, we still, Tom hasn't received any notifications of his, Karen Brackett hasn't received, Karen Brackett actually hasn't heard anything negative, but she also hasn't been told what her amount is.
Yeah.
But she generally doesn't until a little bit later. The titles is usually, Christina would know somewhere in April, so we're in May. I suppose that could be a sign of not good things, but it may not be, I don't know. But we do have, if it passed, well, the budget passes in June, we have the reserves.
And as far as we know, school lunch looks like
School
it's probably
lunch
not
seems to be
affected.
fun. So they had never, or they kind of froze it all, but then they backed off and it was only the administrative piece that was frozen. But unfortunately, without the administrative piece in place, they wouldn't have any way to issue our money.
Right.
But that seems to be resolved.
That's good. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. Do we have anything else to add to finance meeting? We are adjourned at 5:32.
Oh.
We were late.
We were late.
My computer says 5:27. PCs live in a different time zone.
Oh, I got 5:30 on the.
So 5:30.
Right on time.